Oh, baby, 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 baby. I come back, baby. I want to play house with you. Well, you may go to college. Oh, just listening to a little Elvis Presley on the radio there. Oh, not really. I wasn't really listening to it on my 1972 transistor radio. I was really listening to it on the CD player. Anyway, from 1972, the transistor radio, again, something that radically changed the way we listen to music. You could listen to it in your bedroom. You could stick it under your pillow at night, and your parents didn't know. I've really been thinking about a lot of things this morning as we move into week 4. As I develop this class, this is a brand new class. First time we've taught this class at Yavapai College, Introduction to Pop Culture, and also the first time I've taught fully online. So, big learning curve for me to really develop all this stuff. Of course, as you have seen, I've started mainly with music ideas, but as I get into it more, I'm really getting more and more interested in censorship and the movies, also censorship in music. And some movies, hopefully, again, you'll go out and watch this week. My movie recommendations, of course, this is not required recommendations. The Road and the Book of Eli, modern movies. From the 80s, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. From the 90s, The Postman with Kevin Costner. And from the 60s, Dr. Strangelove, all dealing with the post-apocalyptic nuclear world. But you've heard all that before. So let's move on and talk about a few other things. Censorship in the movies. And this was very important for our movie Blackboard Jungle. In 1930, the Motion Picture Production Code was set up by Senator Will Hayes, sometimes known as the Hayes Code. And this Motion Picture Production Code, MPPC, really ruled the movies through the 30s, through the 60s, all the way through the 60s. And this was a big concern of the makers of the movie Blackboard Jungle, and many items had to be censored and really had to be looked at. The ideas of juvenile delinquency, of racial mixing and racial tension, of sexuality, with the star of the movie Glenn Ford and his relationship with the other teacher who was wishing to have an adulterous relationship with Glenn. It never happened, but they obviously, I think they really had to tone that down in the movie. Also, a complete section was added to the movie. Be sure you're looking for this section at approximately 40 minutes in. There is a section where Glenn Ford actually goes to his old college and he sees the freshly scrubbed kids studying their Latin and working in the chemistry lab. That was a section that was added to the movie by demand of the Motion Picture Production Code. They stuck that in, produced it right at the very end of the filmmaking, and added it in. So be sure you're looking for that section when Glenn Ford goes back to his college at about 40 minutes into the movie. So censorship. We also had censorship in the comic books that we talked about a little bit. I want you to just remember that. We had the comic book, the Comics Code Authority. We saw this seal right here, approved by the Comics Code Authority. This was stuck on the comics in the late 50s voluntarily. It was a voluntary program to clean up comic books. And we did have the golden age of these style of comics: Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, Fantastic Four. Here's Amazing Spider-Man from 1964. We see the Comic Code Authority right up there in the corner. I actually owned this comic when I was a kid. It's worth about $100 today in good condition. Where Crawls the Lizard, 1964. So, again, censorship in movies with the MPPC, censorship in comics with the Comic Code Authority, and also some voluntary censorship in music we'll be looking at a little bit later with the lyrics and how Little Richard's music was rewritten for Pat Boone's version. Be sure you're looking for that. Elvis Presley. Let's listen to a little more Elvis here. Here's a remake, a recent remix of his song Baby Let's Play House that we heard at the very beginning. One of my favorite Elvis songs. Let's see if I can get it started here. We can find it here. Elvis Presley remix of Baby Let's Play House. And I think it goes something like this right here. Don't you be nobody's fool. There you have it, the 2008 remix of Baby Let's Play House, recorded in 1955 before Elvis signed to RCA Records. In 1956, Elvis signed to RCA. Elvis the King. Why was he the king? 1956, he signed to RCA, got the big push from RCA Records, had 3 huge hits, Hound Dog, Heartbreak Hotel, and Don't Be Cruel. Elvis was the combination. He did it all. He did the blues, he did the R&B, he even had some of the old Sinatra-style old crooner in him when he sang Love Me Tender. Gospel music, country music, very influenced by country music. He really took all this stuff and rolled it into one big ball. As we look at Little Richard was really a straight descendant from the Louis Jordan style and really working in a blues, jump blues style. But Elvis took it all and mixed it all into one big ball. Plus he had the looks, the voice, and the charisma. He really was the king of rock and roll. We can't deny that. Also, we'll be talking about television in the 50s as we go through our assignment folder. Also be looking for comments about Alan Freed, who was the great DJ who coined the term rock and roll. Be looking for the television stuff, I Love Lucy, 77 Sunset Strip. We'll see some clips for those, I hope. And also, I've really been thinking about technology, and not just this idea of my transistor radio, but new technology. It seems like just yesterday the CD came out. Then we had Napster in about 91, Napster, so now we can have downloading of music and MP3 compression of music, which led to iTunes. We can purchase all of our music on iTunes. iTunes is now the largest seller of music in the world. People just aren't buying CDs anymore. Already the CD is dying away, but now we're moving into an entirely new phase of the cloud, and we're going to talk about this more and more in our last third of the class. The idea of the cloud, getting our music from a giant server somewhere out in space, whether it's a Rhapsody, Playlist.com, Pandora, and this need to purchase music. Do we need to purchase music? And most importantly, how is this going to change how we view music? We're no longer going to have to own music, so how is that going to change how people think about the production of music and what music is there for? In the good old days, we could buy that record album, we could own the Beatles' music, but that whole idea is fading away with the cloud. Also, be sure you go down to the bottom of your assignments folder, this week's discussion over the movie. Be sure you've watched the entire movie, and for our discussion. And also, we have a paper due next week. We have a paper due by Tuesday of next week, and there'll be a complete section about that. Your paper about critical thinking and advertising, the collision of pop culture, consumerism, and advertising, cigarettes, and beer. That's all for now. Think about Elvis. I do.